Hey foodie friends, so today we are going to make some scallion pancakes. Fluffy, crispy, delicious, a little oniony, so let's get saucy. All right foodie friends, like I said, scallion pancakes. Get them from the Chinese Takeout, they're so good. They're really easy to make at home. So what I'm gonna do here is first, in the bowl of my stand mixer, I have already put 3 cups of all-purpose flour. Okay, now to that, I'm going to add a teaspoon and a half of kosher salt. And we're just going to pop on our dough hook here. And I should have plugged this in before, but I forgot, so I'll plug it in now. And we're just gonna give that a quick little mix with our dough hook, just to get the flour incorporated with the salt so that it's kind of evenly distributed throughout there. All right, and now with this still running on a low, I've got a cup of boiling water here. Not quite boiling necessarily. I mean, I popped it in the microwave for 2 minutes, so it's quite hot. I'm just gonna slowly let that drizzle in and let that start to incorporate. And we're looking for this to just start to come together. It may need a little bit more water, but I've got some cold water on the side for that. But we'll see exactly how much we need as we go. What we're looking for here in the end is for a dough to form a nice ball that's kind of not too sticky, a little bit firm, but elastic. All right, so that's the last of my hot water. I'm just gonna give this and bump this up a little bit. So we are gonna need definitely some of this cold water because we definitely have some, I don't know how well you can see, some dry flour around the bowl here. So I'm gonna just drop in a little bit of this cold water. I don't wanna go too much because I don't want it to get too wet. I mean, I literally just put in like a couple of drops of that cold water and it looks pretty good. You can see that the sides are coming pretty clean and the dough has formed around the hook into a good ball. So I'm gonna go ahead and let this now knead on like a medium speed for about 5 to 10 minutes. So you could definitely do this by hand if you don't have a stand mixer. You would probably definitely need this by hand for a good 10 minutes. But we're gonna let this go in this stand mixer, and when it's done, we'll come back. All right, foodie friends, so we are back, and I let my dough knead, and you can see it's all gathered around the hook here. It's got a little bit of tackiness to it, but it's not sticking to my hands. Full transparency, I did add a little bit more flour, probably about a quarter of a cup more flour because it did get a little too wet on me. I think I probably didn't need to add that cold water, even though at first it looked like I did. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this off of my dough hook, and I'm just going to gather it into a ball. So I'm gonna put this just on my countertop, cover it with a piece of plastic wrap, and we're gonna let that rest for 30 minutes. All right, foodie friends, so our dough is resting over here to the side, and while that is happening, I'm going to do the rest of what's going into our scallion pancakes. So I'm using some toasted sesame oil. You could use vegetable oil. I wouldn't recommend olive oil. It's not typically something that would be used in these, but I'm gonna do this toasted sesame oil, 3 tablespoons of that. This is gonna be brushed onto our dough before we put our scallions on. And then this isn't traditional, but I'm gonna put a little bit of ginger in here. So I'm gonna just, on my microplane, grate a little tiny bit of ginger in here just to give it some extra flavor. And then I'm gonna put some garlic in here too. Again, these are optional. This is up to you if you want to do that. So I'm just gonna take 1 clove of garlic and grate it on my microplane into this oil as well. It's gonna take, like I said, we got about 30 minutes for this dough to rest. Now you could actually do this dough a day in advance and let it rest in the fridge overnight. Just let it come to room temperature before you try to roll it out. That's totally up to you. I've got my ginger and garlic in here, so I'm just going to give that a quick little stir, and I'm gonna set that to the side. I have 1 bunch of scallions here. What do I have? This 6 scallions. You know, you're gonna want at least 4 probably for this. just depending on how much scallion you want in your scallion pancake. I want a decent amount. So 6 or whatever comes in your bunch of scallions, but at least probably 4 I would say at the least. So I'm just gonna, oh, that's a little bit too thick. So I wanna try to get these as fine as possible. I've seen somewhere they split these in half first, but I'm just going as fine as I can on these. So we're gonna get these chopped up and we'll get them set aside. And once our dough has rested for that 30 minutes, we'll come back and we'll start building these scallion pancakes. I'm really just using the greens, you know, the lighter green parts, and the whites I'm not necessarily going to use. What I like to do is I'll pop these in a glass of water and put them out on my patio where they can get some sunlight, and I'll grow myself some new scallions. And that'll work maybe once, maybe twice from the same ones, and then they'll start to not get big enough anymore, but it's a good money-saving tip for you too. All right, foodie friends, so our dough has had about 30 minutes to rest, like I said, and it's really nice and soft. It's a little sticky, but that's okay, that's what we want. So I am going to weigh my dough out and divide it up so that it's exactly even. You don't have to do this, you can eyeball it, do it however you want. All right, so I'm just going to divide this up, like I said. We're gonna go for about 107 grams, and then we'll see if there's any left over. We'll just kind of split it up between them. So that is 107. So once we have each one done, we're gonna go ahead and ball it into its own ball, and we can do that, roll it against the countertop. I have this baking mat. Guys, if you don't have one of these, I would highly recommend you get one. They're great. They have conversions on them. You don't have to worry about things sticking too much. I do flour it sometimes. With this, I'm going to oil it a little bit. But anyway, so roll that into a ball. We're gonna stick that back under some plastic wrap so it doesn't dry out, and we'll just continue making the rest of them. All right, so we have rolled up all of our dough balls, and now we are going to go ahead and make the scallion pancakes. So I'm just gonna use a little bit of vegetable oil here on my mat, just so it doesn't stick to my mat too much. It shouldn't, because this is silicone, but you never know. And I'm gonna give a little bit to the top of that too. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna kind of start this off into a rectangle. You could roll this out into a circle, you could roll it out into a rectangle. I'm gonna do a rectangle just to make it a little bit easier on myself when I go to roll it up. I want it to be as even as possible, but I've seen plenty of recipes where they just roll it into a circle and go with it that way. So whatever you wanna do, you're gonna wanna roll it out as thin as you possibly can, because we're gonna get all of that lovely scallion and stuff inside here. 10 inches long by, I don't know, 6, 8 inches. My recipe here is gonna make 6 scallion pancakes. So that's 3 cups of flour for 6 scallion pancakes. You could reduce that down to make as few as you want. They do freeze quite well. We'll put them on a baking sheet after we get them all finished, lined with some parchment paper, and you can actually then separate them with parchment paper, pop them in the freezer, wrapped in plastic, or better yet in like a freezer Ziploc bag to keep them good and fresh. And then you can go ahead and pan fry them directly from frozen. You could let them thaw out in the fridge overnight. You don't really need to. These are super versatile and easy to work with once you have them done. So I've got my first one rolled out pretty well here. It's gotten a little thin in one spot, but I think that's probably okay because we're just rolling this up anyway. So now what I'm gonna do is I've got my mixture here of my sesame oil with my grated garlic and ginger, and I'm gonna go ahead and brush that all over this, just a kind of thin but even layer. Now, if your dough is fighting you too much, you can always let it rest a little bit longer. That gluten can relax a little bit and it won't spring back too much. So once I've got that on there, then I'm going to add a little bit more flavor. Now, most of the recipes I saw were going to sprinkle on a little bit of salt. I'm gonna sprinkle on a little bit of MSG because Why not? It's not as salty as sprinkling on salt, but it has that really delicious umami flavor. And I know MSG gets a bad rap, but guys, it's really not that bad. It just amps up the flavor, and it's again, it doesn't have as much sodium as salt. So if you're worried about sodium, MSG is not the bad guy here. And then we're going to go ahead and take about a couple of tablespoons of our scallions and sprinkle those right on here. So just kind of eyeball. You know, like I said, we're making 6 out of this, so 1/6 of this, which is kind of a strange measure, but get as much on there as you can, but remember you've got 5 more to do, okay? And then we're going to go ahead and roll this. So I'm gonna start with this side farthest from me because that got a little bit thinner as I was rolling it, and I'm just gonna roll this down. So like I said, I'm just rolling this gently towards myself, and as I'm doing so, I'm kind of pressing to get any big air pockets out of there. Try to distribute these scallions a little more evenly, but get this rolled up into a nice little log or scroll, you know, cinnamon roll, scallion-y cinnamon roll. Once this is rolled up and kind of sealed on that edge over there, and I can even pull this over and kind of pinch it a little bit, right, so that it's nice and sealed. Then we're going to take from one end and we're going to roll this into itself like a snail. So I'm just rolling this into itself, as you can see here. And then you can do one of two things. This can go underneath or it can just be pressed against the side. I'm going to go a little bit underneath, just that way we know it's really nice and secure once we roll this out. So this is done, and we're going to place it back underneath of our plastic wrap and let it rest while we make the other ones, and then we'll roll them out. Okay, foodie friends, so I have finished making all of our scallion pancakes into the rolls. I'm just gonna leave those to rest for a few minutes before I roll them out so that gluten can relax. That way they don't spring back too much on me as I try to roll out the pancakes. Okay, so while our scallion pancakes are resting, we're gonna mix up our sauce. So we're gonna put in 1 tablespoon of rice wine vinegar, along with 1 tablespoon of dark mushroom soy sauce. You could use a regular soy sauce for this. I just like the darker, deep umami flavor that this gives. We're also going to add in 1 tablespoon of water. Oops, I spilled a little bit there, so let me get a little bit more. And then we are going to also add in a little bit of toasted sesame oil, maybe about a teaspoon. You don't want too much because it can overpower it really easily. And then finally, we're going to finish that with just a little bit of brown sugar. Now, you could absolutely use white sugar for this if you don't have brown sugar. I just like the little bit of caramelly molasses notes that the brown sugar gives. So we will give this a really good stir to dissolve all that sugar and mix everything really well, and then we will set that aside and come back to use that once our pancakes are done. Okay, so it's time to roll out our scallion pancakes, and like I said, I have this mat which I really like because it has the measurements on it, so I can just lay this in the middle and it'll show me exactly how big I want to make this, like 6-7 inches or whatever. So I'm just going to pat this out with my hands a little bit, and then I'm going to roll it out. So you can roll this as big or as small as you want. I made 6 of these out of this recipe, so about 6 to 7 inches is as big as I'm going to go. So we'll continue doing this. All right, so I'm cooking my scallion pancakes on this flat top griddle. You can absolutely do this in a skillet. A non-stick skillet is best, or a cast iron skillet would be great. You can see that it's starting to cook where it's getting a little bit translucent here. So I'm just gonna check these and flip them as need be. So we got them a little golden on the one side, and we're gonna just let them continue to cook, rotating them around, check them, flip them. Typically, if you're doing this in a pan, it's probably gonna go a little bit faster. You can use a little bit more oil than I did on this griddle, but that's okay. And so we're just gonna kind of press these down for me on the griddle to get those spots that look like they might not be cooking as fast. Also, the element of that griddle, you can see the darker spots where that element really is. So I kind of push them around to really get them onto that element so that they get nice and brown. All right, so we're gonna take these off of here and we're gonna put them on a rack and let them cool just a little bit, and then we'll give them a cut and a taste. And we hear that little bit of crunch there. I'm gonna cut these into 4 pieces. You can see the lovely scallions in there. And that is our scallion pancakes. So they're nice and golden. They are crispy but soft at the same time. They've got a nice chew to them. This delicious sauce just makes them so, so good. They're excellent. You guys are definitely going to want to make this. So thanks as always for joining me here on Getting Saucy with Chef Lynn. There will be a link to the full written recipe in the description box below. You can follow me across all social media at Chef Lynn Wheeler. My website where the recipe will actually be is cheflynnwheeler.com. If you're in the Central Florida area, you can always reach out to me there to book me for catering or special events or personal chef jobs. And again, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.